Hey everybody, welcome to My Green Pets. I'm William Green, and today's video is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to show you the landscape plants that I selected 5 years ago for this property, and we're going to talk a little bit about size, spacing, and color, and how they grow, that kind of stuff. And hopefully this is going to help you if you're in Zone 6, USDA Zone 6 in the United States, and you can maybe get some benefit from choosing some different landscape plants. I know one of the big things is when you buy plants at the nursery, it's really hard to imagine what they're going to look like when they're fully grown, so hopefully this video is going to give you a little bit of help with that. Alright, let's get started. Alright, because I am next to a busy road, there will be cars going by, and I apologize for the noise. But first plant I want to look at here is this old gold juniper. Now, these plants you can get at your local big box store, and when you get them, they're about this big, like from my hand to the end here. It's just one little sprig. But I just wanted to kind of take a step back and let you see how big they actually get. It's really important to look at the tags. When the plant, when the tag says maximum height and width is 5 feet or 3 feet or whatever, pay attention to that. I mean, it might take a few years, but the plants really do get a lot bigger than you think they're going to. So one thing I like about the old gold juniper is that the new growth does have kind of a yellow tinge to it. And of course it's beautiful all winter long as well. It's evergreen, and it does have some little spurs and thorns on it, but every year we kind of cut some to make Christmas arrangements, and it's just a really nice evergreen for borders. We've got them here next to the steps, and they're just really nice. Alright, here another example of a plant that when you get at the garden center, it's like 2 or 3 feet tall at most. And you can see the full size of it here. This is a purple smoke tree, and it's not in bloom. It blooms earlier in the summer, but it has big, beautiful, wispy flowers, and the plant itself has really nice foliage, especially the new foliage comes out this brilliant red color and then kind of fades to a purplish, bluish, green color. Really nice, very quick grower. It got this big in just a few years. And I think it's maxed out. I don't think it's going to get that big. It's a great plant. You can see I've got it right underneath the power lines here. It's never going to get big enough where it's going to interfere with the power lines or cause any problems like that. That's definitely something you want to look for when you're planting trees. You don't want to plant a tree that's branches are going to grow up in the power lines or possibly fall and damage the power lines. So great plant, purple smoke tree. Another absolutely gorgeous plant that works in a wide variety of situations is this Cutleaf Sumac. Tigeri Sumac is the common name for it. It is absolutely beautiful. You can see the leaves have this lovely cut pattern to them, kind of serrated, red or pinkish stems, this bright green foliage all summer long. Looks beautiful, and you can see with the Colorado blue spruce behind it, it's a really nice contrast. It really pops out. Now, the thing that you need to know about this plant is that it grows quickly and it spreads like wildfire. It will send up little runners all over the place. But don't despair, because one, if you mow your yard, you can mow over the little runners and it will take care of them. You just mow over them, no big deal. If they do get away from you though, this plant is super easy to pull up. You can literally pull it up with your hands. You don't even need any tools to dig or anything like that. Earlier in the spring, I just kind of leaned with my body weight against some of these branches. It was getting a little thick in here, and they just fell over, and I just pulled them out of the ground. So really not difficult to take, to manage. Even though it does pop up little suckers everywhere, they're really easy to get rid of. So this is the Cutleaf Sumac Tigeri. Alright, let's talk a minute about Arborvitae. So Arborvitae comes in all kinds of shapes. Most people are familiar with the pointy ones, and I've got some in the back we'll look at, but this is actually Golden Globe Arborvitae. And you can see it has gotten pretty darn big. Now, the tag for this plant says 36 inches tall. right? Maximum height. When you buy it at the garden center, it's just a little tiny thing. You can never imagine that it's going to get this size. One nice thing about Golden Globe is that the new growth does have this beautiful golden color. And in the winter time, it's not as vibrant, but it still has a nice coppery color. It's winter interest, really nice, you know, smells good when you pinch them. And I have not had to prune this at all in 5 years. This is just the shape that it's grown in. Now, Arborvitae, by the way, if you ever do need to prune it, you can. However, you need to be careful because you can only prune down to living branches, okay? If I were to prune, for example, hard cut down to this branch where there's no green, this would never grow back. You have to find a place where it's green, where there's still green coming out of it, and cut back to there. But remember, if you're pruning for the first time and not sure how the plant's going to respond, err on the side of caution, right? Maybe just prune just a little bit and see how it responds. It's better to prune as the plant is growing than to wait until it's too big and then try to cut it back, because you'll end up with a plant with lots of big dead spots in it. That's no good. You're not going to want that. Another Arborvitae is this one. And I apologize because I've forgotten the name, but I'm going to put it down below where you can read it there on the screen. This plant is actually meant to get much, much, much bigger. Again, when you buy it at the store, it's just a little thing down this close to the ground. But over the years, it has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is one where you would want to put it in a place where it can grow up and you don't have to do much pruning. It's really important when you're selecting plants for your landscape that you take into account the maximum size of the plant and also how much pruning and things you're going to have to do. I'm going to show you a plant here in a second. Actually, I'll show you right now. So this is Taxus. This is the common, it's called a yew plant, Y-E-W. And these were not here when these were here when the house was purchased, before I started landscaping. And I would never have planted this plant here. Why? Because yews are incredibly fast, strong growers. They are tough as nails. You can cut them down to the ground and they will grow back completely. They are like bulletproof. The problem is they are also enormous. And if I were to let this thing grow, it could get 10, 15 feet tall. It's enormous. So that means I have to continually be cutting this thing back. And that is not what I want to do. I want a landscape that requires a little pruning here and there, but is not requiring tons and tons of major prunings and cutbacks and trimming. You know, if you like that kind of stuff, if you like doing topiaries, that kind of stuff, then this is the kind of plant for you. But for me, that is not what I like to do. So I would have never planted this. This is a plant for, like, for example, the gap between these two big spruce trees. If I wanted to fill this in with a big shrub, this would be a great plant for that. If you just need something to take up a ton of space, perfect plant. But if you're wanting something that is going to just be nice in front of the house, no, this thing is going to get enormous. Okay, so I actually would like to dig these up and get rid of them one day, but it's a huge job and I don't feel like doing it right now. Okay, now for some of the show pieces of the front landscaping, and that is this Oakleaf hydrangea. How gorgeous are these things? These are native to the southeastern United States, so a big fan of native plants. That Sumac, by the way, that's also a native plant. It's just a variety of a native plant. So of course they do well here. A lot of people that love hydrangeas, they get the big mop head kinds, and they're like, why don't they do well? They need water, they need shade, all this kind of stuff. The oak leaves are by far, they love the hot, humid south. Here in zone 6, they do great. And this is the Queen of Hearts variety. Queen of Hearts actually blooms out in late May, early June with pure white panicles. These are called panicles, right? The flowers, flower heads. And they're gorgeous. I mean, just pure white, beautiful, right? And look how many you get. And then as the season progresses, the white changes to this lovely rosy pink. That's why it's called Queen of Hearts, right? And then as the season continues to progress towards fall, you can see that the panicles actually They die off and they get crispy, but they maintain their shape, and they will stay like this all winter long. So they are beautiful landscaping plants all year round. And if you live in the zone where they are happy, of course they love heat, humidity, lots of water, but man, they will reward you, and they are such fast growers too. These can actually get, again, pay attention to the tags. These guys can get 9 feet tall and as wide. I mean, they can get enormous. So what I do is every year, well, starting last year, during the winter time, during December, I cut half of the branches almost down to the ground, just maybe 6 inches off the ground. So half of the branches. Why do I only half? Because the plant does not bloom on new growth. It only blooms on growth that's a year old. So if you want to trim it or prune it but not lose the blooms for the next year, you need to, they recommend doing maybe a third up to a half. I don't know, you can do as much as you want. I did a half and I still got this display this year. So come December, I'm going to be back here and I'm going to cut the blooming branches. I'm going to cut those back down, and the ones that got cut last year, you can see them kind of back here with no blooms on them. You can see how huge they are, even though they got cut all the way down to the ground last winter. Those are going to be the blooming branches next year. So we're not going to be without blooms, but we are going to get a little bit of a size reduction, some shaping in there. And I don't mind doing that with a plant like this that is so rewarding. Okay, now, one of my favorite, I love all of these plants, by the way, but some of them just definitely stand out. This one right here is a Jelena witch hazel, and this is a witch hazel hybrid. It's a hybrid between an Asian witch hazel and a North American witch hazel, I think. I might be wrong on that, but it's a witch hazel. Jelena witch hazel, there's a lot of different varieties. They have all kinds, you have yellow flowers, pink flowers, red flowers, orange flowers, flame colored flowers. Look at the gorgeous shape of this small tree. North America is native to the, North America has native witch hazels. The Asian one I like because of the bloom period. So this is the really cool thing about witch hazels. They bloom in the winter, like straight up winter. This plant blooms in February. In February, we always get a few little warm days here and there. Not super warm, but the temperature might pop up for a few days before going back down. And this plant is covered. You can see the little buds on the leaves. These are buds that will bloom out this winter, at the end of winter. And they are these flame orange colors, and they're fragrant. They have this lovely sweet fragrance, right? So you have this beautiful silvery foliage all year round, or not foliage, but the branch structure is a silvery color, right? Then you have the really cool leaves that have beautiful fall color, by the way. And then the thing blooms. When does it bloom? It blooms in the winter time, in February. It's unbelievable. In fact, look here, we've actually got one blooming right now. You can see this little yellow stringy thing, and that's not characteristic for this plant. I don't know why that one came out that color. Usually the ones that bloom in February are more like an orangey, like a red orangey color. I love witch hazel. It is so pretty, so pretty. Now in the front yard, I actually over here, this is a North American witch hazel. This is a Virginia witch hazel, and it blooms in early winter, so like November, December. So this landscaping, the landscaping that I've done here, there's only 1 month of the year where nothing's in bloom, and that's in January. And we're talking zone 6. I mean, we have long, cold, gray, miserable winters here, but pick the right plants, you're gonna have things in bloom looking beautiful all year round. Next door, we have another enormous plant. This is a Carolina allspice hybrid called Hartlage wine, Calycanthus, I believe, Hartlage wine. If you can imagine, this thing was cut down up to about 2 feet off the ground last winter. This is how much it grows in one season. It is not a small plant. It is not for small spaces, but oh my gosh, this thing blooms in the spring and then kind of occasionally throughout the year. I'm going to show you, there's a flower on it back here. Hartlage wine. Look at this thing. Look at these gorgeous big red. This is kind of faded. It's a few days old, but I mean, can you imagine this whole plant covered in these big, gorgeous blooms? They are slightly fragrant, not really strongly fragrant, but they do have a kind of a slight banana fragrance to them. And when the plant is covered with them in the spring, and I mean covered, every little leaf node there will have 1 or 2 or 3 flowers poking out, maybe even more. So they are really spectacular when they bloom out. And if you have dogwoods like the Cornus florida, they will kind of complement each other, the white and the red. Anyway, so this is beautiful. I love this thing. When I got it, again, tiny little thing in a little pot, stuck it in the ground. A few years later, look at it, it's humongous. Hartlage wine. Next door to that, we've got speaking of dogwoods, this is a dogwood. And this plant I got at my local garden center. It is not a typical American dogwood, it's a Korean dogwood. And the difference with the Korean dogwood is that one of the things that happens so often is that our native North American dogwoods, they will bloom out in early spring, and then we will get a frost and it will freeze and all the blooms will get damaged or destroyed by the frost. These don't bloom until June, late May or June. So for here in zone 6, we're not going to get any frost after the second week of May. So these wait until the danger of frost is well past before they bloom. And they have beautiful star-shaped little white flowers, about this big across. They're pretty nice. They cover the plant, and then when that's over, they form these little berries, and I've heard these called strawberry dogwoods because when these are ripe, these are bright pink. And I've heard you can even eat them. I mean, obviously the birds are going to love these, but you can actually eat these yourself if you want to try them out. And there's recipes and stuff online you can use. So, I mean, what's better? You got beautiful tree. Now this is going to get the label on this guy says maximum 20 feet tall. Well, who knows, right? But it's, I planted it 12 feet away from the house. The plan was that it was going to kind of shade the air conditioning unit, maybe cool that. But if you'll notice, I planted everything pretty far away from the air conditioning unit because you always need plenty of air to get to your air conditioner. That's a different story. But obviously, appliances, that kind of stuff, be careful what you plant in case their function is going to be impeded by the planting. All right, Korean dogwood. I'm going to say just a little bit about this. This is a burning bush. I know a lot of people have these in their yards. Burning bush is not a native plant, and it is actually considered invasive. It does have little flowers. It does produce little fruits. It can reproduce, and it is invasive and can crowd out native plants, especially if the seeds reach little pieces of forest, that kind of stuff. It will actually crowd out native plants. So burning bush is beautiful in the fall. It has bright red foliage, but it is not native. And if you can, I didn't realize that when I got it, but I would have chosen something else instead of that, maybe a serviceberry, something like that. All right, next humongous plant that comes as a little sprig in the garden center. This is a Chicago hardy fig. Chicago hardy fig, they're really common. I just got this one in my local, big box store. It comes as this little stick in a bag, right? This was planted maybe 5 years ago. It is enormous. I cut it back to the ground every year. It grows this much in one season, and it's not done. It's going to keep growing. But what's cool about it is that it produces edible figs. You can see them here. And it is loaded. It is loaded with them. Now, unfortunately, because I don't live here anymore, I don't get to enjoy the figs, but here they are. And if you want a big, interesting plant, I mean, it's very interesting. Leaves, grows super fast, grows huge. If you want something like this that you have a big space you need to fill in, it's a great plant. And heck, you got fruit off of it too. What more could you want? All right, I just showed you the Carolina Allspice hybrid over there, the red one. Now this is actually a white one, this little guy, and it has taken quite a few years to get going. This is called the Venus Sweetshrub. And the Venus Sweetshrub, instead of having those big red blooms, it has white blooms. And unfortunately, I can't show you the flower, but I can show you the bud. So this guy's going to be blooming shortly, just a few days, he'll open up. They bloom more profusely in early summer. But these are more fragrant and they don't get quite as big as the big Hartlage wine. Okay, so this is the big red one was Hartlage wine. This is Venus Sweetshrub. Venus Sweetshrub gets maximum 5 feet high, something like that. You never know. When they tell you the maximum, you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt. It's a guide, but it's not exact. But this one's several years old. I got this one actually on Amazon. It was like a tiny little sprig. Again, it's taken several years to get going. This is actually the first year that it's really taken off. So I'm not going to prune it. I did shape it for the first couple years, but I'm not going to prune it this year. I'm just going to let it go. And then maybe next year I'll cut some of the branches back. But it's also super nice. Fragrant, not huge, beautiful flowers. That's what I like. Okay, these trees. This is North America's largest native fruit. This is the pawpaw. Asimina triloba is the Latin name, and this is one of my favorite trees. I grew up with these growing all around. They're very common in the South. They like wet spots. If you have a wet, soggy spot that you want to find something that's going to grow, pawpaws love it. Cool thing about pawpaws is that they have these really kind of interesting tropical looking leaves, right? And this is the primary food source for the zebra swallowtail, which is a gorgeous butterfly. And the leaves actually contain a natural insecticide. So the zebra swallowtail's caterpillar eats the leaves, takes those toxins into its body, and then it becomes very distasteful to birds and other potential predators. So it's a very cool thing going on here. Native North American plant, always good. But the best thing, check this out. I've got it. They are loaded with fruit this year. Check out the fruits. Check out the fruits. Pawpaw, these are called. Look how many, oh my gosh. And if you look up in here, we got several more. Pawpaw fruits, look up here. So these fruits actually, they stay on the tree until they are ripe and then they fall. The best time to to pick a pawpaw is actually to pick it up off the ground, because the day that it falls to the ground is the day that it's going to be best. These never really made it to the commercial fruit market because they don't keep. They go bad after 2 or 3 days. So you really have to eat them right when you get them. They can be scraped out and frozen. They taste, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, they taste like a mango and a banana and a pineapple all slushied up together. I mean, they're really, really good. And they do have big seeds in them you have to scrape out. But if you ever had a fruit called a custard apple, or in Spanish it's the chirimoya, they are similar. They're similar. Okay, obviously in the South you got to have crepe myrtles. Got the pink one and the red one over here. Crepe myrtles, go without saying, they are just absolutely gorgeous. Birds like them, the nest in, and they're nice kind of border plants. They just put on such wonderful shows. Now we come to one of my favorite North American trees. This is the Tupelo tree. And you probably heard of Tupelo honey. It's got so many names. It's black gum, sour gum, Tupelo, black Tupelo. I just call it Tupelo. Call it the Tupelo. And what I love about Tupelo, I love everything about it. The bark is beautiful. The leaves are this gorgeous, glossy, dark green color, shiny. Love it. The tree itself, when it's young, it has a pyramidal shape. Kind of a nice pyramid. As it grows older, it kind of starts to spread out a little bit. But the branches actually grow out perpendicular from the stem. They go straight out, right? Another cool thing about the Tupelo is that female Tupelo trees produce this wonderful fruit. And in the fall, they turn black. And you can eat them. They're edible. They're very sour. Birds absolutely love them. And look how many. I mean, it is loaded with these little fruits. The male Tupelo trees produce flowers that honeybees absolutely love. You probably heard of, like I said earlier, Tupelo honey. Tupelo trees have tons of nectar. Bees, pollinators love them. And then, of course, the most important and beautiful thing about the Tupelo, one thing that I absolutely love, everybody's planting Tupelos for this reason, is we get a sneak peek, the fall color. The fall color of the Tupelo is unmatched. It is the brightest, reddest, most spectacular fall color of any North American tree. you could see just this one's kind of changing a little early. When this whole tree takes on this color, it is a head turner. It is a showstopper. Just to give you some idea, the cultivar names of tupelos that you can buy in garden centers: Wildfire. You know, a lot of them have to do with fire. I mean, they are brilliant. Sugar maples are pretty, but tupelos are prettier. They're so brilliantly red in the fall. Now, you want to make sure if you do get one, that you get you might want to ask about the cultivar, because some of them the color can be inconsistent, and if it's not a good year, if there's not, you know, if it's a dry year, something like that, then maybe the color won't be that great. But just the preview that this plant is giving me right now, I'm pretty confident that this fall it's going to give a spectacular show. And one cool thing about tupelos also, you can tell I really love it, they turn their leaves a little bit earlier than other trees, and they hold on to that fall color for a long time. And I've read that early color change is to attract birds, because that means that the fruit's ready. So like I said, these little fruits are kind of green now, but they're going to be dark purplish red, almost like a black olive, purplish blue, like a black olive. And yeah, so that's the tupelo tree. I can't say enough about it. I love my tupelo tree. I can't wait until it's a big mature tree, and I hope to be able to see it in full fall color one day. And just a couple more things I'm going to show you, and we're going to wrap this up. These are Bonanza peaches. These are little peach trees you buy at your garden center. This is the Bonanza variety, and you can see they get pretty darn big. I think maximum height on the label says six feet. Well, I'm 6 feet tall, and these are taller than me. So these are about full sized. These put out beautiful pink flowers in the spring. They're one of the very first things to bloom. Fortunately, if we have late frosts, they often their flowers are victim to the late frost, but they're called Bonanza because they produce tons of peaches. Now this year, because we've had such a hot, humid, rainy summer, all the peaches have turned into this, right? Not great, but it's fine. I wanted the peaches because I like the size, I like the shape, and I planted the peaches because I wanted them to frame the tupelo tree. I wanted privacy from the neighbors, and I wanted them to kind of frame that tupelo. I wanted those pawpaws to block the view of the neighbor's house. The crepe myrtles block their house, so I don't have any fences, but I have lots of landscaping to offer some privacy. Last thing I'm going to talk to you about today is the Arborvitae. You can see these two at the neighbor's house are actually full grown. So these guys, again, you know, you get them at the garden center at the end of the season for like $3.99 a piece. And this is what they grow into. They need regular water, full sun, and they love our hot, humid, southern climate. They look beautiful in the winter. The foliage dulls a little bit. It's not as vibrant green, but it's still evergreen. And as these guys get mature, like the ones behind them, you can see they're going to fill in nicely, and they're going to be a total privacy screen right there as well. So that is all I wanted to show you guys. I hope that some of this was helpful, especially if you're thinking about landscaping, or if you'd like some new plants and you live in USDA Zone 6. Our maximum temperatures in the summer are about as hot as it gets. In Fahrenheit, we're talking 105 degrees it can get. Not usually, but it can get that hot. In the wintertime, it can get absolutely freezing cold. Fahrenheit, -20, -30 even, possibly. Not usually, but it can happen. So I hope that you've enjoyed, and our next episode will be back in the grow tent looking at a bunch of Cattleyas in bloom. So we'll see you then. Take care. I'm William Green. Bye.